right, welcome back to Burn the Talking Points. I am not Joe Francaviglia. I'm not as cool. He'll be back. But I'm Stuart Pittman. I'm the chair of the Maryland Democratic Party, and I've got the best guest here. I've got the new Speaker of the House of Maryland, Joseline Peña-Melnyk. Welcome.
Thank you, my friend. It's really a blessing to be here with you.
Yeah.
I think you're pretty cool.
You think I'm cool?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. All right. I'm fun. I don't know if I'm cool. We'll have some fun. Okay. So first of all, congratulations. I've said that to you many, many times. You were the right person for the moment. I think everybody, at least in the Democratic Party, a lot of Republicans too, but people realize you were the right person. So
thank you.
And I'm really proud that Democrats got behind you unanimously. In fact, so did Republicans in the end, and did such a good job with the process. So you and I met when I was running as a candidate, and I went to you for advice. Do you remember that meeting?
I remember that. We met at what is called the Graduate now.
Yep.
We met at the restaurant.
Yep.
And when you called, I asked you to bring, what did I ask you to bring that you brought with you?
A plan.
Yes.
I mean, I was clearly, I felt like I had to sell myself to you. I was a nobody. I was this South County farm boy who was running for office, who'd never run for office before. And so I was a little nervous.
But I was excited to meet you because I think that in politics, you need all kinds of people. And we need people like you. And I was excited when I heard you were running. And I said, bring a little notebook with you. And I'm going to share a lot with you. And we did. And since then, I have had, honestly, a lot of love and admiration and respect for you. You know.
Well, I feel like it's so important to have people who will mentor. I'm not young, but I know you've mentored a lot of younger people and brought them in. And one of the things you told me, which is not what I expected, was you really focused on fundraising because you knew that I was running against somebody who had a huge war chest, and I was a pretty unlikely. I mean, he'd won by 22 points. So it seemed like a long shot at the time, but it was needed.
But you were the same thing you told me. You were the person needed at that time. You were the leader that was needed. Someone that was independent, right? That was courageous. And in a way, not knowing the system and not being part of the party like a lot of other people was a blessing because you just went ahead and did it. So I think that was what was needed, and you have led that way.
Yeah.
So that's important.
So how about you though? How did you, I mean, you don't have to tell the whole story, but tell as much as you want about how you went from, growing up on the island, as you often say, to deciding that you wanted to get into politics and leading, and who mentored you?
Coming from Dominican Republic when I was 8 years old and having lived with my grandparents, as I always say, in a little wooden house, they had the ceiling, the roof was made out of metal. They had holes where we will run when it will rain and get the pots and pans to catch, the raindrops, and no indoor plumbing. So we had a latrine, which was a hole, in the back of the house, and where toilet paper was corn husk and newspaper, where I had to walk from school for more than an hour to walk from school home and then come home and not find a meal. Those experiences really show you about the inequities and that we have in society, because some of the kids I went to school were pretty well off and had money, right?
Oh, really?
Because I went to a Catholic school in the Dominican Republic.
Uh-huh.
But, they, in order to afford it, my mom was able to pay for it because she sent money from the U.S. for us to go to school there. With the exchange, she can pay for the tuition, but we didn't have the driver that came and picked us up, and we didn't have, the food when we got home, right? So, and my grandparents had 11 kids at that time. They were actually more than that. They were, I believe, 13 or 14 of them, and 11 survived. And that's 11 mouths to feed.
So were you living with your grandparents?
I did. I lived with my grandparents while my parents were in the U.S. And my dad was in the U.S. and my mom was in the capital, right? Because she left her parents' home to go work in the capital, and she was the oldest to help provide, for her family. And then basically, we grew up very poor with a lot of needs, and that shapes you. And I always knew that I wanted more, that I wanted to help my family. And when we came to the U.S., those struggles persist because then my mom became a single mom, someone that didn't study till third grade elementary school, and someone who didn't have any resources, didn't speak not a word of English, and had two young girls in New York City. And that was a lot for her. But those struggles really shaped me, where I knew I wanted Stuart to go to school. I didn't know what that looked like.
Yeah.
But I knew I wanted to get an education, and that was going to be my salvation. That was going to be the greatest equalizer for me. And that comes from within, that fire.
Mhm.
Like when people ask, well, what motivates you? Why do you work so hard? Is because when you have grown up with nothing and you know what it is to have no food, no money to take a bus, you're very motivated not to go back there.
Yeah.
And to create opportunities for others.
So Terry Lehrman, who was a chair of the party at one time, tells a story about, or he told a story recently, you were there, about you showing up at the Democratic Party office as a volunteer. And then with a big box, you started collecting winter coats for families. Do you remember what you were doing professionally at that time and why you went to the Democratic Party?
Well, I was actually staying at home because I was, after law school, I worked with the Public Defender's Service in Philadelphia. Had a hard time passing the bar exam.
Oh, yeah.
And lost my job. And then took my time, moved to D.C., where my boyfriend, my husband now, we've been married 31 years. And I stayed with him while I studied for the bar, which was a big no-no for my Catholic family. But they had to deal with it. And I eventually, passed the bar and did child neglect law and did juvenile law and adult representation, and then ended up applying for a job with Eric Holder at the U.S. Attorney's Office at the Department of Justice as a assistant prosecutor. And I worked there. After a while, a couple of years, we had our first child and we decided I wanted to be home. And while I was home, I started, my husband would say, you need to go get a real job. You're running a pro bono clinic from the house. But I started volunteering and doing a lot of work for different nonprofits and started getting involved. So I remember that drive. I did that for the House of Ruth. And I used to be a battered women counselor before I went to law school. So that's an issue very close to my heart. And that's how I met Terry.
So when
we worked together.
So when you first ran for office, what was the position you ran for, and what were your issues? What was your platform?
I first ran for office. Actually, we live in College Park for the local city council, College Park City Council. And the issue that was really that motivated me to run was that the University of Maryland wanted to build what they called the Connector Road, which was a road that would take that South Farm, the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center, that beautiful land by the Kissen Drive. And they were going to build a road that was going to bypass the city so that when they had games, right, and people got stuck on Route 1 to make it easier, I decided with my neighbors to organize against it and fight it because It is not a connector road. It's all in the labeling. It's really a bypass. And it was going to bypass the city. And we had a plan on how to develop the city and make it a true college town, which now if you go to College Park, you could see that. And I didn't know what Annapolis was. I only knew that I needed to come here because, may he rest in peace, Mike Miller had put money in the budget to study it. So I went to Target, honest to God. I purchased like 100 white T-shirts, and I wrote in the front of it, "Stop the road." Organized my neighbors. We came to Annapolis. I'd never been here. We filled the room, and I gave testimony against it. And that was part of my activism.
That is so cool, because I didn't expect you to say that you started out on a land use issue that was something that residents were fighting, and some would even say NIMBY, although it sounds like you had a vision for College Park that was part of the reason you were doing it.
Yeah, and then I ran for city council.
Okay.
After that.
Okay.
Got elected. They're 2-year terms, and served 2 years, and then ran again and got elected. So in the middle of that second term, Pauline Menace, I don't know if you knew her, she was at that time the longest serving female delegate in the House, and she decided to retire. So I asked the team if I could be on their team. They said no. And they played anyway. My amazing friend, actually Delegate Barnes, Chair Barnes, and they said no. So I said, okay. I went to my husband. I said, "Do you love me?" He said, "That is a stupid question." I said, "Well, guess what? I'm going to take some of our money. I'm not asking you for permission, but I am going to take some of our money." And we had a family meeting. The 3 kids, they were, I think, 5 and 6. I have a set of twins and a boy. They're 19 months apart. And they all agreed they would be supportive. And I rented an office. I door knock. I went and recruited high school students and seniors. We door knock on more than 10,000 doors, did about 8,000 phone calls, 7 or so mailings, had 125 poll workers on election day, and came in. There were 9 of us running, came in second, almost first.
So you were a kick-ass organizer, it sounds like to me.
I leave it all out there, but I also have been blessed with people that have believed in me and have given me their time and money generously. So,
no, but I do love that story because it's an example of somebody who started out at the local neighborhood level and just got their neighbors together on an issue and then turned that into a political campaign and really shocked and surprised the people who really didn't think you could have they would have wanted you on the team running if they'd known how good you were at it, and they didn't, and they made a mistake, and you proved it. And I've noticed that you engage with people who are doing organizing. I mean, you're a Latina woman and Afro-Latina woman, and you have made a point, I know, in your work as a delegate, to engage the Latino community.
Absolutely.
And been really, really systematic about it. Can you talk about that work?
Yeah, I think it's important. When I first got out of law school, when I graduated, and while I was in law school, I worked during the summers. I volunteer. I remember one summer I drove to Ohio and I worked with ABLE. It was called Advocates for Basic Legal Equality, and I worked educating the farm workers about their rights, because during that time, and that was the 90s, right? 89, 90. Under the Fair Labor Standard Act, they were supposed to be paid, I think, like $3 an hour, right? Minimum wage. And they were promised housing. And then when they would arrive, they would give them a tiny little room for a family of like 7. And then they wouldn't pay them correctly. So I used to go around to give them little books to keep their hours. And I would educate them on how to get off the farm when the farmers would spray pesticides in Ohio.
In Ohio. Okay.
Yeah, if spray pesticides while they were still on the farm, and we would educate them on those issues, on OSHA, violations, and so I learned a lot. And then another summer, I drove to Alabama, and I worked with Brian Stevenson. I don't know if you know his work. He does a lot of work with people that are on the death penalty. There's a movie based on his work. I think it's called Just Right. I may not get the title correctly, but he's amazing, very respected. So it was an organization that wrote the appeals for inmates on death row. So I have always done that kind of work, working with the people. It is what's in my heart as well. And I work with people that are usually in the shadows and do not have a voice. And I feel that God blessed me with being able to learn English, become a lawyer. And as a Black Latina, I have always worked very hard in the Black and Brown communities to make sure that we have a voice and that we empower people to show them how to use their voices for change, for good, to come to Annapolis. And when I first started here, we were not here. We did not exist. Okay, immigrants, you just didn't see us anywhere. You didn't see us working as, HR directors or as chief of staff or interns, receptionists. We just didn't exist.
Was it a Latino caucus, or did you start?
No, I started.
You started that, okay.
With 2 more people, and I got in trouble for doing that.
Really?
I did. But it was worth
I won't ask who you got in trouble from,
but it was worth it.
Yeah.
It was some good trouble.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So you started the Latino caucus and got in trouble for it. You just this week started the rural caucus.
Yeah, I did.
You encouraged Democrats and Republicans to organize a rural caucus because rural communities in Maryland didn't have a strong enough voice in the General Assembly.
That's right. That's right. And, being speaker, I represent proudly District 21, which is gorgeous Prince George's and gorgeous Anne Arundel. But as a speaker, you represent 141 people. So it's not seeing things anymore in a tunnel vision, but with a wider angle. And there are a lot of needs in Western Maryland and, the rural areas, the Eastern Shore. And I thought, why not? Let's have something that is bipartisan. It is not symbolic. I have no interest in creating something that is going to be symbolic at all. Life is too short.
Yeah.
And I gave them a charge. And that charge is to come up with a package of bills and things that we can do. For example, the Edward Fund, I learned that needs to be funded. So we're going to work on finding some money for that.
What is that fund?
It's a fund in Western Maryland that they use the money to create business opportunities as well. So and it's been around for 4 years, I believe.
Yeah.
And it needs to be funded, and we're working with the Senate and the governor's office to make sure we find some money this year for that. They've done some great things with it.
Yeah. So I was really excited to see the rural caucus because I had, just gone to all 24 Maryland counties, and I think 15 of them we call rural. We have the rural caucus within the Democratic Party, and Democrats in these counties feel like Republicans that they don't have a voice in Annapolis because their representatives are, I don't know what they're doing, but they don't feel like their representatives have a voice, and they don't feel like their representatives represent them. They tend to be Republicans, or almost all Republicans, and some of them. And what some of these Democrats are doing is contesting every seat, is organizing to at least have somebody on the ballot, even if they know they're the minority party in the community. And so in Western Maryland, where they didn't get their FEMA money, people are starting to look around and wondering what's going on in politics. And in farmers who have these tariffs are looking around and wondering who's really representing them, whether it's Washington or Maryland. And, the governor says, leave no one behind. But often we know that it is those rural areas left behind. And when it comes to health clinics and Medicaid cuts are going to hurt those rural communities more than anywhere. And poverty, as you know from Ohio, in rural areas is often the highest poverty parts of our state are Baltimore City and some of our rural counties. So
it is, but
yeah.
the governor actually put money, $12 million for Western Maryland, to take care of what the federal government did not take care of. And
Right.
It's interesting because that area, Cumberland and that area where they had the flooding, they voted for Trump.
Yeah.
But he did not care.
He didn't deliver.
So the governor has put $12 million to help. And we are the party, honestly, that cares about people.
Yep.
When you think about Medicaid, where we have 6.3 million people in Maryland that are Medicaid, that live here, 6.3 million, 1.5 million people on Medicaid, 1.5 million out of the 6.3.
Yeah.
Where to qualify for Medicaid, one individual has to make less than $22,000. I challenge any of you, can you live on less than $22,000 after you pay rent, you pay food, you pay for gas, you pay for clothing, you pay for medication, you pay for whatever else you may have. It's you just can't live on that. And we're the party that, supports Medicaid, supports SNAP, for poor people, right? We're the party that allows organizing, right?
Yep.
Fair elections, right?
Yep. And one of the things that's been exciting for me as chair of the party is to see that we have these brave people who are Democrats, some independents, who live in rural communities where their neighbors are Trump voters, and they're not afraid to step up and be seen as Democrats and be seen as having value and talk to their neighbors. And so it's really exciting to see these candidates popping up. And this may be a year where I think a lot of people are looking for a new political home. And if we can embrace them and bring them into our party, that maybe they'll find it's the right one.
I hope so, Stuart, because we're living in during very difficult times. This is not the country that I know and have known since I arrived here at 8 years old, right? Where I arrived in New York City, went to public school. My mom was on social services, where we struggle, but people were decent and helpful. These times people are plain and simple nasty. Just look at social media, the comments that are written, the disrespect, the lack of empathy as you see eyes hit the street, and the abuse that our neighbors are facing. No one, let's be clear, wants a criminal to be on the street. There's a difference here.
Yeah.
But we do want respect for our brothers and sisters. And at the very least, we can agree to disagree, but we should be civil.
Yeah.
And have empathy. And we lack that today.
Yeah.
And how can someone who doesn't have resources support someone like the president that we have in this country, who every day is becoming wealthier, he and his family, who set America first and is really a foreign service president? Yeah. Tell me if your bills have gotten cheaper. Tell me if your life is better. We are the party that cares about people. And we may not get it always right, but we definitely have heart and empathy.
Yeah. Amen. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think you and I are, we so believe that human beings have goodness in them that not afraid to create a rural council, a rural coalition that has people who have the Republican label on them, and not afraid to go into areas where Democrats haven't been winning and saying we're going to grow.
That's
and
right.
It's been really exciting for me to see that that, I mean, actually the DNC, I've been surprised at, is spreading its wings a bit and really focusing on organizing in places that they haven't, being everywhere and not just the places where we know. We still need to increase the participation in blue areas. We still need to not only increase turnout, but just increase participation everywhere, right? Like you do every day in your work. When you invite people to Annapolis as a delegate, they show up because they know that you're going to welcome them and listen to them.
Absolutely. And I think that listening is very important. I actually spoke to the minority leader, Jason Baco, and I said, may we meet once a week? Well, you know what? We met last Wednesday. We met yesterday. He and I by ourselves in my office. And I want him to tell me what the concerns are. And can I help you here with this, in the budget? What legislation? We might not agree on everything, but can we agree on the bread and butter issues and try to work together? And I'm going to do that every week. And I told him that. And when I'm done, God willing, after June, I'm going to learn and visit Maryland and visit those parts because it matters. It really does.
Okay, I have a hard question for you. If you were the chair of the Maryland Democratic Party, and just if you were chair, what would you do? Where would you put your focus growing this party?
Wow, that's a loaded question. First, thank you for being the chair because people don't know that it's a volunteer position and that you don't get paid for that. And it's a big commitment. Traveling to all 23 counties in Baltimore City, it's a lot of work. And it's time that you're away from your family. So thank you for doing that. I don't think people realize that.
It's an important position, though.
And I'm glad you're there because you care and you have a heart.
Yeah.
I would focus. I know everybody wants a short thing. Like when we are trying to make decisions as candidates, where do we spend the money we have? On those super voters, people that are going to come and vote, right? Seniors, Black women. But I think that we have to focus on the young as well. Those new voters, that are new voters, they've registered, making them feel welcome. Spending time on them. People that often will not vote, like Latinos and others, which, by the way, that has changed. And we showed that in the last few elections.
Yeah.
Because I think that we woke up. I think that is worth spending time there and educating people on the power of their vote and what the party cares about. Because they're the future. They really are. I would spend time in the high schools, those seniors that are about to graduate.
Yep.
To make sure that they're registered and that we have them. That's where I will spend my time.
So I'm sure you've noticed that more and more people are registering as independents, right? Not affiliated. And that one of the things that's happened in Maryland that's good is that people register when they get their driver's license, or sometimes they go for, social service, and the state agencies are putting the papers in front of people and saying, okay, I can register you to vote, Democrat, Republican, or unaffiliated. All of a sudden they have to make a decision and they don't have a lot of information. So one of the things that the party is going to be doing this year is focusing on groups of people that we know will be asked that question, and young people are top of the list, and letting them know what a Democrat is. And
that's really important. Or when they're making that decision, they need to take their mother. And I went to the MBA, and my son was asked. He looked at the woman, and he looked at me and said, "My mom is a Democrat. I have to register Democrat." And that's exactly what he did because I was with him. But you're absolutely right. You have to show them They have to have an understanding of what we stand for. And we need to do, no disrespect meant, but we need to do a better job at messaging.
Okay, so I'm not your son, but let's say I'm some young person who's sitting at the DMV and I don't know anything and I have to make a decision and I turn to you and I say, um, which one should I register for, ma'am? What do they stand for?
I would say I'm a Democrat, and our party believes in dignity, in people, in giving everyone an opportunity, regardless of where you come from, in respect.
What's the other party stand for, ma'am?
And the other party, I would say, cares a lot about people that are very well off and giving them a lot of tax breaks and opportunities. They are not as inclusive. For example, if you have a child who's a transgender child, there's no room in that party. That kid does not fit under their umbrella. Their rights will not be respected. As a woman, that other party, doesn't respect my rights to choose.
And what do you say to people who say that the Democratic Party needs to stop with the identity politics, they call it, and especially the transgender issues, and stop talking about people playing sports of the opposite sex? Why are the Democrats talking about those things all the time?
We don't talk about that all the time.
Exactly.
People choose to talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
And they choose what is convenient for them. We talk about everything and focus on everyone. And the pronoun here is we. And we are respectful every human being. And that makes a difference. There is room for everyone under our tent.
Yep.
Which is not the same with the other party.
Right.
It's a big difference.
Yeah. If you do math, you can get everybody and you can still deal with the individual groups.
That's right.
Yeah. Everybody has different culture, different.
Yeah. And while you may not be gay, you don't know what the future holds. If you have children, grandchildren, wouldn't you want to leave a society where they will be respected regardless of who they are, and that their rights will be respected, that you wouldn't be worried about their security, that you would not be worried about them not being able to find work because of what they look like or who they are? Wouldn't you want to have the rules that apply for everyone equally?
Okay, so this kid who's filling out the form is convinced, partly because you as a person are very sincere, and I believe you, and you look me in the eye, which makes me think that the more we have human beings talking to human beings that are out there at these places, having those personal interactions, the better off we are. Like real grassroots organizing as opposed to just digital.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you have the human touch. It's very different.
It's powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't make it up. You can't BS your way through it.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things that I was so excited about when we went on this tour was that people are highly, highly motivated and willing to do things they've never done and take personal risks like knocking on doors and talking to strangers because they know that it's worth it.
Especially, Stuart, today, where it's not just worth it. We have so much to lose.
Right.
So much to lose.
So I'm going to make an announcement here. Maybe we will have announced this by the time it goes out, maybe. But, the Maryland Democratic Party hasn't done annual conventions. But we felt like there's such a high level of energy right now out there. And here we are trying to expand and contest every seat and be everywhere. And we know it's a year where People are going to be realigning politically, and we want them to realign into the Democratic Party. So we did the Talk Back tour. They told us to fight back. Fight back was the core of the message. So we're going to have a summit the weekend after the primary, when everybody's getting ready for the general election. And we're going to call it the Fight Back and Win Summit. And it's going to be at Live Casino. Will you be there?
Yes.
Yeah?
I mean,
You coach some young people. Our hope is to bring a lot of people in and do sessions and training and have people leave that Fight Back and Win Summit prepared to go out into their communities and organize.
You know what? I promise to spread the word and give me the day and to put it on my calendar. Don't forget, as a reminder, to be there and be supportive. And it should be a place that should be beautifully represented.
Well, we are counting on you as the speaker, but as Joseline Peña-Melnyk as well.
Absolutely.
To
count on it.
To inspire people and to help us train people and to build this party and grow.
I'd love to do that. It's needed.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having the heart you do, Stuart, and for your service.
Thank you for tuning in to Burn the Talking Points. And please like and subscribe. And let's fight back and win in 2026.